All right. Today's date is March 23rd, 2017. My name is Nicholas Dogris, and I am the co-founder and director of NeuroField. And very thankful that you're here today. We're going to be doing a basic walkthrough of the NeuroField64 software platform. Everybody here should be able to see my screen. And yes, this seminar is being recorded so that you can download it later. So don't fear if you have questions and something doesn't get addressed. The good news is that we can all jump on the listserv as well and continue this conversation as we go along. So you can certainly ask questions on the Yahoo group after we get this going. So I'm going to start NeuroField64 and take you through the platform. We have a lot of different things that you can do in this particular platform. And what's really great about it is that there's so much functionality in 64 above NeuroField 10 that we're using it now almost all the time. NeuroField 10 is, definitely served its purpose, definitely a good piece of software. But 64 is proving to be superior in a lot of different ways, and I'm going to show you some things that we're doing with it that really do make it amazing. I'm going to do another webinar in the near future here that talks more about theory and what it is that we do with RNS versus ACS versus DC stimulation versus EMF stimulation versus neurofeedback synchronization. The theory that I've been developing is gelling nicely now. We're getting it's coming together in such a way where it's making a lot of sense, and the predictability of this platform is really quite good. So when you do something with it, you can predict which way it's actually going to come out. All right, so I started my my NeuroField system up, and as you can see, I have everything connected here and turned on. You can see we have two X3000s, two TDCS units, a Q20, and an HRV unit, and it's all hooked up on one CAN bus. And this is really great because you can utilize any and all of these units at one time, or you can mix and match them depending on what you're actually doing. When you see all this, this is just like the other program, the indicator to show that things are turned on and plugged in correctly. If you turn on the program and you don't see the unit get displayed here, that means either it's not turned on right, or it's the driver's not installed, or the battery's dead, or not in, or the unit isn't on. Just so you know, in the 7 years, well, actually 10 years now that we've been doing NeuroField, the rate of failure of the devices is really, really low. It's less than 1% of everything that we put out. So when something goes wrong, and if you think that something's broken, it's probably not. It's probably something associated with power. 9 times out of 10, a CAN bus driver or a dead battery can explain the problem. So just keep that in mind. When you're seeing this screen, you want to see everything get displayed, and if it's there, you're good to go. You can put two CAN bus adapters on the machine. You can run a Q20 on one and the stim devices on the other if you want to do the NeuroField NeuroGuide combination. And that's another set of procedures. For today, all we have is just one CAN bus connected to the machine. So I'm going to use CAN bus number 1, and it takes us into the treatment interface. Now, we designed this interface with the idea of it's kind of a logical progression. If you look at the top here, you're going to see tabs. We're on the patient selection tab right now. The next tab next to it is treatment stimulation setup. The next tab after that is neurofeedback selection, and then the start treatment tab. Now, it's important that you follow the progression, and the program will actually stop you from being able to click buttons unless you've actually done the other parts here. So like I can't click start treatment right now because I haven't selected a patient or set up a treatment. So these buttons are dead right now. So, and it's telling you, please select a patient in the treatment tab. On every page, you will see a red blinking text that talks about what needs to be done. And the red blinky, I call it, is a friendly reminder about what you need to do. So it's saying here, select a patient. So I'm going to go back over here and get back to the patient selection tab. Now, before I go into this next step here, I want to give a plug for the manual. Cindy Reynolds wrote us a beautiful manual for the release of this system, and it's completely done. It's really great. If you go to your C drive and you look for a folder, here's the old NeuroField 10 folder. Right below it, you'll see another folder that says NeuroField64. NeuroField 10 and NeuroField64 can be installed on the same computer. They don't interact with each other, and they don't overwrite any data between the two programs, so they're independent of each other. If you go into NeuroField64 folder, you'll see this is where the databases live. Now, one of the files right there is the NeuroField64 user manual. And if you have any questions about anything that is in this platform, you can go through this manual and it will take you through every one of the steps, all the procedures, and gives you a lot of great information. So thank you to Cindy Reynolds for doing that. Really appreciated. A lot of hard work that went into this manual. It's really well written. So I suggest you take the time to take a look at it. All right. Now, you can see that we have one patient set up in this program, and that's me. I'm going to create a new patient. So what you want to do here is you just go into these boxes here, enter the last name, and I'm going to say tester, and the first name is test, and then I'm going to give a date of birth. Let's say, I'll just make it anything, 5/1/1956. Now, when I enter that information in here, you just click on Add New Patient, and it says Patient Added Successfully. And now you'll see the patient appear in the grid on the left side here. The program automatically loads that patient in for you and assigns a patient ID to the patient, and which you can write on the chart. Now, once that person is selected, then you'll see that the red text here has changed, and it says Verified Desired Patient is selected, and click Select Patient and Continue, which is this button right here, which makes it real easy to get to the next tab. A couple other things about this opening page here. You can select a patient and click on View Patient History, which will open up the history and allow you to see what protocols you've given in the past if you want to go directly to the history. You can also go to the history on the left side here. We have a whole toolbar here that gives you enormous amounts of information. So you can click into the history that way. I want to make sure everybody's muted. Okay, good. The other thing here is if you want to, you can click on where it says Use Network Database. What this does is it actually gives you the ability to network your patient database. You can put it on a network server and then point all your stations with NeuroField64 at that patient database, and it will work off of one patient database, which is what we do in the clinic. If you leave it as it is now, it's going to look for the patient database on the local machine in which the program is installed. So right now we've installed this new version. It's just a blank database. So we're starting here. We click Setup and Continue, which you can see now once we do that, it takes us to the next tab. And now this is your stimulation setup page. This is where you can set up all the units that you want to use. And as you might remember, I have 2 X3000s and 2 TDCS units set up to run on this canvas. So I'm going to use all 4 of my units. So in order to enable a unit, you just simply click on Enable Primary, Enable Secondary. This will set up my EMF units, the 3000s. And then below it, you see the TDCS units. So I can enable both of those, and now all of these units are enabled. Now everything that you click on here is going to be saved in the patient history. So it's worth the time to set up where you're actually placing electrodes and coils. And you'll notice under each one of the stim units there are drop-down menus. And for the X3000s you have 4 coils, so there's 4 drop-downs. And I can say that, let's say I'm going to use what we call the clamshell. So I'm going to say F3 and F4 touching at SZ, and then C3 and C4 touching at CZ, and then we have P3 and then P4 touching at PZ, and then we're going to do O1 and O2. Now this configuration of coils will cover the entire head, all the way down the cingulate from the front all the way to the back. And then for the TDCS units, we could do this in a lot of different ways. But let's say we're going to run FP1 to O1, and FP2 to O2. Now this will definitely have an effect depending on what kind of protocol that we run, but we're running current down each hemisphere essentially. Anode and cathode matters when you're running TDCS. But they're interchangeable when you're running ACS or random noise stimulation. All right, so once I set up my stim units and I set up, I've enabled them and I selected my sites, I can pick a protocol. So there's the button right here. It says Select Treatment Protocol. I click on that and it opens up this little guy. And in this window, it defaults to the NeuroField database at the very top here. This is a drop-down menu. If you click on it, you'll see the other databases that get installed when you put the system in. There's NICS database, there's provider database, provider's your database, empty, you can create your own protocols. There's TIF's database with all her protocols, and then the Nogier database. Now each one of them has unique uses, and I encourage you to play around with them. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to take my time and kind of go through the NeuroField database, but I suggest that you really take time to look at all of them. For those of you that were curious, the NICS database that did get loaded here contains a limited amount of the original NIC database protocols, and they are all available for viewing, which means that all the numbers on these databases are viewable now. Everything is transparent in the interest of science. So I'm going to go back to the NeuroField database here and load that up. If you look at that and you go down to this drop-down menu, you're going to see all of the standard protocols that we used in the previous NeuroField database, and along with the standard stims, the cross-frequency coupling protocols, and then you get down into parasympathetic protocols with Nogier paired together. These are kind of cool because you can give a parasympathetic stimulation, and you can do it with the TACS unit while simultaneously having coils over a person's belly, which is really nice. And it's a way to really calm somebody down and stimulate their gut simultaneously. So if you notice here, when I go to pick a protocol, I select one and then I click on load. You have to do that in order to make it load up. Now you'll notice in each one of the descriptions, you'll see what the protocol is going to do, and you'll see EMF, that's what's going to happen through the coils, and then ACS is going to happen through the actual alternating current stimulation. And the primary mag stim and secondary mag stim are directly correlated to the X3000 units. Primary current stim and secondary current stim are for the ACS, DC, and RNS units. So at the bottom here, you're going to see a table. And if you notice, there's tabs for each one of the tables here. This is, right now, it's looking at the primary mag stim. And you can see what the stim index is, what the protocol is going to do, how many milliseconds, and how many volts. If you click over to The next one, that's for the secondary unit. This is for the current units. We're calling them primary current stim and secondary current stim units. And then here's for the secondary unit. So if you want to see what each one does in terms of frequency, you certainly can scroll down and take a look at those guys. Now, once you get your protocol loaded, let's say I'm going to choose, in this particular case, let's say I want to choose 12 to 18 rocking, and I load it. Now in this protocol, it starts at 12 hertz and goes 12.1, 12.2, 12.3 until it gets to 18, and then it will cycle backwards and get all the way back down to 12 again. If you look down here, you can see where it starts, and it gets up to 18, and then it starts working its way back down to 12. That's what we call a rocking protocol. Once you have your protocol loaded, you can click Save Protocol and Continue. And this brings you back to the treatment stimulation page. You'll notice that the protocol is loaded. It tells you what the estimated runtime is. Now, a little caveat about the estimated runtime. The estimated runtime is always less than the actual runtime. There's reasons for that, but basically the actual runtime is going to be longer because there's time in between each of the stimulations that makes the protocol longer. So for whatever it's worth, when you see 5 minutes and 5 seconds, you can pretty much bank on it's going to be much longer than that. So there's a way to control for the amount of time that you actually give. So let's say in this session I wanted to give a stim only for 30 minutes. Now you'll see there's a looping and auto abort button here. If you put the loops in, it's set up for one loop, which would be 5 minutes and 5 seconds. If I make it 10 loops and click Update Runtime, this changes to 50 minutes and 50 seconds. So let's say I wanted to do a 30-minute session. Now that's roughly 25 minutes, right, in the estimated runtime. The way to control for it is to enable the auto abort time. If you click on this box and then enter the number in minutes, it's going to track it, and at 30 minutes, well, I put 30 in here, it's going to shut it off, and despite how many loops the program wants to run. So even if I made this 50 loops and set the runtime at 254 minutes, it would still stop at 30 minutes. So for whatever it's worth, if you want to make sure that the program's not going to run longer than it should, set your auto abort time. At the very bottom here, you'll see another little widget that helps you out. You can set up your global duration override. Now, if you click this button and you change this number, and I just changed it to 50,000 milliseconds, which is 50 seconds, what you see is that now every one of the stims that's given here is going to run for 50 seconds. The canned amount of time that the protocol indicates is 5,000 milliseconds. So you'll see that the amount of time will change. So this is actually really useful when you're running with the EEG. And I'll come back to this and show you how it actually works later. But for now, we're going to disable it and let it run just as a regular stim using the protocol times. So I set it for 5 loops, 25 minutes, enabled auto abort for 30 minutes. Now this is all set up, and I'm ready to move on. So it says here, verify stim settings, and click Save Stim Setup and Continue. So I'm going to click on that, and now it automatically jumps us to the next tab. Depending on what you have hooked up on the machine, the training modes will be either clickable or non-clickable. Because I have everything hooked up and on, you can enable HRV, you can enable EEG, or you can just leave it as it is. It defaults to none, which is the stim only mode. And so nothing here is enabled right now. So we're good with that. We want to do a stim only, and so I'm going to say none, and we're going to move on. On this page, if you want to, you could open up manual control for the TACS unit, DC or random noise. Once you set up the stimulation setup, the program knows what you have connected in it, knows what you want to do in terms of site placement. So it allows you to actually launch this manual control. I'm going to come back to this later, but if you want to, you can launch it from here. Now, once I have it set, which there's nothing to do on this page, I'm just going to click on Save Patient Settings and Continue. And it takes us to the next tab now. We're on the Start Treatment tab. You'll see different things here that are enabled or that actually get activated depending on what you actually have set up on the machine. On the very top here, there's a blank little thing and a blank little table. And what you do, what will happen here is that the program will display what protocol you selected as it runs. So it'll fill in this box. Below it, you'll see primary EMF, secondary EMF, and then the direct current units. These speedometers here all indicate the amount of voltage that it's actually generating as the program runs. In these boxes below each speedometer, you'll see what frequency is actually being given. All right. Without any further ado, what I'm going to do is launch a stim only. So to do so, now you'll notice the Start Treatment box is clickable because we've set everything up. And I can simply click on that, and NeuroField will go through a little process of setting everything up, and then it will start the process of stimming. And again, we have 2 units going right now. And at the very bottom, you can see the TDCS units and what they're giving at 0.5 milliamps. And then you can see what each one of the EMF units is giving. And as it goes along, there's a lot of different kinds of data that you can get here. If you're interested, you can click on the Show List view, and it will show you what the stim parameters are, general treatment status, and then if you're running EEG, it actually shows you threshold parameters as well. So there's a lot of data that gets tracked as you go along. You can unclick this and go from there. Now, if you're wanting to stop the treatment, there's 2 ways to stop it. You have a Stop Treatment button and you have Stop Treatment ASAP. Stop Treatment button will stop the treatment and save the patient data into the history. It will wait for the last stim cycle to go and complete, and once it's done, then it goes and it'll stop. Stop Treatment ASAP will just kill the session immediately. So let's say we wanted to stop it. We just click on Stop Treatment here. You notice it's finishing the last stim cycle, and then once it's done, it saves the data, and then you see this, treatment complete, click to continue. And what that means is click anywhere. This is one big button. You just click on it, and now it's done. Now, if I want to, I can go back and look at the history, click on the History button here, and then it will show my patient name. It'll show me the protocol that was run. It tells me exactly what the settings were. I can click on the patient specific stim unit settings. It says what units were actually enabled, what the site placements were, and then if I want to, I can attach a note to each one of these protocols. So this protocol is highlighted right now. I can enter comments on this note and then save it by clicking Update Notes. Now a note is saved to this protocol. You can amend this anytime you want to. Right now we're working on a patient report generator, and that's going to get going real soon here, but it's not quite ready for prime time yet. And that's where it's going to save all the information. It's going to plot it for you and whatnot. There's a lot in this history. We really went through a lot to make sure we're trying to give you data that you can work with. In the EEG, again, we'll come back to this. If you click on measured amplitude data, it'll show you what data was actually collected. Since there was none in this session, there's none to display. It will plot data for you from each specific EEG site in each frequency band. It'll allow you to plot the data and show you what the amplitude data looks like and what the z-score data looks like. It'll allow you to print the data so that you can actually put it on a form and make a hard copy or an electronic copy if you wish to. It does the same thing for coherence and phase data as well. So there's a lot that went into the history this time that we're really happy with, and we're building on this. It's our intention to build a thinking machine. We definitely want to acquire as much EEG data as possible and to start to formulate profiles. So there's more to that. All right, so I just ran you through what's called the stim-only procedure. Now, let's say you wanted to do a dehabituation on a person. So let's make this guy go over here. I'm going to go back to patient selection. I have my patients selected, and let's say I go, well, I really want to run a dehab on a person. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to do something else here. I killed my program. My patient goes home. They come back the next day and they say, hey, I really felt good with that treatment and I want you to do it again. So patient comes in, you say that's great, turn on all your units, you start the system, select the patient by just putting your mouse on the left side of the name here and selecting them. It'll highlight the person, their information will get logged in here. You could put patient details in here as well in terms of treatment plan, what protocol to give for how much time, and link it to the person. But let's say you go, okay, this person had a good response to that treatment. You click Set Up Patient and Continue, and then now it takes you to this next page. You don't have to go through all the things that I just took you through in order to get them going. All you have to do is click on Get Patient Stim Setup. If you click on it, it will load the protocol that we just put together, and it'll have it all ready to go with the amount of time, the amount of loops, and everything. Now you can of course change things if you want to, and it will save the changes. But whatever the last protocol was, you can save Stim Setup and Continue. You're on None, so again, and then you can start the protocol and off you go. So that makes it really easy to be able to grab the existing information and move through the setup. The same goes for EEG information. We have the same kind of Get Patient Settings button there. And if you have any EEG history there that you had just used, it will grab it and load it for you. But we will circle back to that in a little bit. So let's say we want to use a dehabituation on a person. Now, in the new program, you don't see a dehab button. People have been asking us where it went. And it's in the Select Treatment Protocol area. So what you do is you click on Select Treatment Protocol, and it opens up this window. Now, here's the Dehab button. It says Specialized Protocols, Dehab. So now you click on Dehab. And then what it does is it just popped us over to the dehabituator setup. And just like the old program, it has the same exact tools, same settings. So it defaults at 10 cycles, but you know, most people run about 100 cycles or 200 cycles. Let's say we're going to run 200 cycles. So you enter the amount of cycles you want to give. That's a fixed value. It automatically clicks the buttons for randomization, which is what the dehabituator is all about. It's a random number generator. You can randomize frequency, duration, and voltage. And the values here are what I like to use in my clinic, but of course you're not limited to these values. You can set the dehabituator just like you did the old program from 1 to 300,000 hertz, from 1 second to 60 seconds, and from 0.0008 volts all the way up to 5 volts. Now, one of the differences here is that you can change the waveform now. So if you click on Set Waveform, it pops this little window open, and you can choose a sine wave, triangle wave, or square wave. Now, for dehabituator, the square is the most aggressive way to decouple the system. And so you'll notice that there's two tabs here. There's the Mag Stim tab, and then there's the Current Stim tab. Mag, of course, is associated with the X3000s. Current Stim is for the TDCS, ACS, RNS units. So if I click on that, now it's telling you, okay, how do you want to set this guy up? And if you notice here, it's randomizing from 0.5 to 2.5 milliamps. That's a really strong dehabituation. So for whatever it's worth, I wouldn't give 2.5. I would probably lower it to maybe 1 or even less than that, maybe 0.75. You don't have to use a lot of power with direct current stimulation to get the brain to change. You can do it with really low levels of stimulation. Like the MagStim, you can change the waveform. So if you click on it, now you get all these opportunities to dehab with. You can use random noise stimulation, which is in a lot of ways way more powerful than the dehabituator itself with magnetic stimulation. Or you could use different kinds of waveforms. So there's different things you can try. Once you set it up to the parameters that you want, you simply click on Save, Create Dehabituator Protocol. Now it's going to ask you, do you want to delete the table? You say yes. And then what it does is it will delete the table, and then it will write your 200 cycles for you. Let's move this guy over here. Once it's done, it's going to say verify it's correct. So we're going to scroll down. Do we have 200 cycles? Yep. So I have my 200 cycles. I'm good to go. I click Save Protocol and Continue. Now you're going to notice that the protocol is a Z dehabituator protocol. If I loop it one time and update that, it'll run for 7 minutes and 33 seconds. You can enable whatever units you want to enable, and it will do it automatically. Then you just click on Save Stim Setup and Continue. It's a stim only, save and continue, and then simply start it, and then it will do the dehabituation. So that's how you actually do a stim only and a dehabituation stimulation. Now, those are pretty much the same kind of procedures that we used in the old program. But here's some of the cool stuff that you can do that's different. So let's say we go back into the treatment stimulation setup, and I'm going to get the previous one that we did. Oh, it didn't let me do it. So I'm going to select my treatment protocol. Let's say I want to give that 12 to 18 rocking. I load it. And now what it's going to do is it's going to give 12 to 18 in each one of these, right? Now, maybe I don't want to give 12 to 18 through alternating current. Maybe I want to do something different. So I'm going to say, okay, I'll save this protocol and continue. You notice that it's loaded all those, that protocol into each one of the units. But we have overrides built into the system now for the DC and AC here for the waveform, which is really cool because now you can create any kind of protocol you want on the fly without actually having to write one. So let's say I wanted to do 12 to 18 rocking with the coils, but I want to use random noise stimulation in the high mode through the random noise stimulation unit. So what I do is I click on Override Waveform, and it pops open the window for the override. Now I can select Random Noise High, and it will load it now. All right, so now instead of giving 12 to 18 hertz, it's going to give Random Noise High through this particular unit. The other unit's still set up to run 12 to 18. Now if I want to, I can say, well, wait a minute, I want them both to do the same thing, so I can click on Override here, click on Random Noise High, and now both of these units are set up to run Random Noise High. If I want to, I can change the waveform again and make it something different. I can make it a square wave. I can make it a triangle wave. I can override the voltage. If it's too much for somebody and 0.5 is too high, I can make it 0.1. So there's a lot of ways to be able to set this guy up to run, and it will do it. So now I've just set these guys up. I select and continue, and I start it. Now I'm going to be giving 12 to 18 through my coils, but now I'm giving a real low stimulation with the random noise. And this is what it looks like when you're actually giving something at 0.1 milliamps. It's a real low stimulation, but it does have clinical utility, which is really interesting. Less is more in this case, and a lot of other cases where you don't have to hit the brain with a lot to make a change. So as this runs here, I can say, okay, well, that's good. I want to stop it. So I'm going to click on Stop ASAP, and it's going to stop the unit and give you this button to click on. So now I've showed you how to override the stimulation. I've showed you how to do stim only, how to run the dehabituator. So again, these are some of the basic functions of the system. So let's get into more of the fun stuff. Not that stim only is not fun, but this is definitely another way to run the system. I'm going to select my patient, and I'm going to get it into select patient and continue. Now from here, what I can do is, let's say I have a person that we want to do either some slow wave, or we want to get somebody that we want to slow down. So I'm going to set up a new patient here. Person comes in. We don't have a quick check, a Q check hooked up, do we? Okay. Annie is my my guinea pig today. All right, so we're going to say, okay, let's get this started. Assuming that the cap's set up and everything's right, we're going to select our patient, select and continue. Now, in this particular case, we're going to enable all 4 units. We're going to set up our coils the same way that we did last time. And let's see, we'll go T3, T4, and O1, P3, P4. This is a little bit of a different configuration. And then we're going to set up our units to do FP1 to O1, FP2 to O2. And there we go. Now I'm going to set a treatment protocol. This is a person that, let's say we want to slow them down. So I'm going to choose the 0.31 to 1 HD rocking, and then I'm going to load it. Now you can see that the protocol is loaded here, and I'm going to save protocol and continue. Now what I want to do for when we run neurofeedback, I suggest that you set it up to run around 3 loops. You won't go through all 3 loops, especially if you're running the newer RTZ configuration. So what I want to do here is I'm going to let this run the way it is. I'm going to let it set up the way it is, but I'm going to select it 3 loops and update. Then I'm going to click on save stim setup and continue. All right, now when we get to this screen now, we had it set up for stim only. So, but what I want to do is I want to enable EEG. So I just click on EEG here, and now all the EEG modes become available. What you're going to notice here is that we have some new things in here. You can train with your X2000, with your Q20, and we have a new EEG 4-channel HRV that's coming out shortly. We've been playing around with that, and that's going to be released formally by probably the 2nd or 3rd quarter of this year. But right now it sees the Q20, so that's what it selected. So that's our device selection. Feedback type. The unit now allows us to be able to use tones or Zucor feedback. If you have a person that has a lot of anxiety, you might want to do an eyes closed session where you actually use tone feedback. If you click on this little drop-down menu that says sound, these are the sounds that you can select for the feedback if you want to. We're going to be playing around with that more and creating different sounds as time goes on, but those work for the moment. If you have the Zucor Media Player, if you have it installed and enabled, you can click on that and use video feedback. For this case, we're going to use Zucor so you can see what it looks like when it runs. Training metric. You can use amplitude training, which is good old school amplitude training, or you can use Z-score training. We have licensed the applied neuroscience, NeuroGuide Z-score database for 19-channel surface Z-score. Now, just like in NeuroGuide, we can model your brain in such a way so that you get norm reference data on the fly. The difference here is that we're synchronizing our neurofeedback with stimulation. Now, you saw what I set up in the previous screen in terms of the stim units. Those electrodes would be on the head, and I should back up a little bit. If we're going to run a full cap EEG, you might be asking yourself, well, how do you get FP1 and O1 electrodes on if that's going to interfere with the cap? Well, what you would do is you would put those ACS electrodes next to FP1 and O1. They wouldn't be exactly in those locations, but they would be next to the ones on the cap, and make sure that they're not touching each other or interacting with each other. And so you would run them under the electrode cap, but making sure not to have the gels interact with each other. Okay, so I'm going to choose Z-score here. The next thing you want to do is choose the procedure that you want to run. Now, if you don't choose a procedure, what the computer will do is it will run and give a stimulation, and then it will train for whatever amount of time that you set in your training time box. So right now it defaults to 16 seconds. So it would train for 16 seconds, it would stop, and then give a stimulation. And we like to train at 32 seconds. We found that to be a really good amount of training to give, and it's up to you in terms of what you want to do. But we found that that actually works nicely. Now, in this case, I do want to enable RTZ. I developed RTZ in 2012, and what it does essentially, it's a synchronized neurofeedback stimulation procedure. What it does is it automatically takes the training time and establishes a baseline. It's going to grab 32 seconds of EEG. And then from there, what it's going to do, it's going to stop, and then it's going to give you your first stimulation and then jump into another 32 seconds of neurofeedback. Now, during that time, we're going to set up thresholds. If the thresholds that we set are met, then whatever frequency we give is going to be given again. If the thresholds are not met, then what we're going to do is modulate the frequency and then take you back into training again. The idea is to find a frequency that actually guides the brain into a normative state based on the Z-score data. Now, in this particular case, what we're going to do is leave it at RTZ at 32 seconds. Now, progressive scan is another technique that I just came up with, and basically it's a form of neurostimulation where you give a stim to a person and they train for X amount of time. In this case, it would be 32 seconds. At the end of 32 seconds, if the thresholds are met, then the training time is doubled and you're not given another stimulation. It just doubles the time. So if we meet it in 32, it would turn into 64, and you'd run for 64 seconds. At the end of 64 seconds, if the training time is not met, then NeuroField will stop, give you a stimulation. It will take the training time back to 32 seconds and try again. So when you're running progressive scan, you're going to want to start at either 8 seconds or 16 seconds of treatment time, and then watch the user start to be able to train longer and longer periods of time. It's a method that we like to use for people that have already gone through a number of RTZ sessions, and they're ready to train more so with less stimulation. We want to see a person progressively be able to train on their own. RTZ will always give a stimulation. It just depends on whether it's the same stimulation or a modified one. All right, so I'm going to select RTZ here, and then the eye status is open or closed. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to leave it at open, and we're using a QEEG cap. The program does allow you to choose individual electrodes. If we did that with the Q20, what it would do is you'd have to plug in the breakout box, and then you could run up to 4 electrodes, and do the treatment that way. You're going to see these boxes that say run as MDI child. What that means is that if you unclick this means that you can take the 19-channel EEG box that you're going to see displayed and move it somewhere else on the screen. If you leave it checked, it'll be within this window. Lastly, this box here says kill stim during EEG measurement. I suggest just leave this alone. Don't uncheck it. If you uncheck it, it's going to be giving stimulations during the EEG neurofeedback, which is going to corrupt the EEG. Now, in this particular scenario, if you uncheck it, you should only be giving frequencies that are in the very, very ultra slow range, something at the 0.1 or less frequency. That would run below the filter that we set up and not affect the EEG and enable you to give stimulation while training. So if you want to get into the infra-low or ultra-low stimulations where you actually give something below 0.1, uncheck this box and then create a protocol that does that. But for this case, always leave it selected until you know that the protocol is not going to affect the EEG. Now once you get all this set up, you just click on Save Patient Settings and Continue. And what it does now is it looks for thresholds, and if it doesn't find any for the patient, it's going to tell you this: I haven't found anything. Just click OK, and it pops open your threshold setup. The tabs here are set up in a logical progression, just like the initial setup tabs in the other page. The first setup here is for amplitude. You'll see all 19 sites and then all 19 drop-down menus. You can select a frequency and or a range here, and then a z-score range, and you'll see that we set them all up so that you get a 1 to -1 z-score range, but you can set them up any way you want to. You can make your own thresholds here, which is why you see all these empty tables. In this particular case, what I want to do is set up some specific type of threshold. So I'm going to go to T3 and choose theta. Let's see, then I'm going to go T5 and choose theta. I'm going to go P3 and choose theta. These are what you wanted to do, right? Okay, F3. This is Annie's protocol that she developed for herself, and F4. So what I'm doing, I'm setting up a whole bunch of different frequency bands here. This is a condition that has to be met for the training. And then PZ for high beta, and then P4, high beta, and then FZ, high beta, and CZ, high beta. Okay, so now I've set up all my conditions here. Once I'm happy with all this, I can move on by clicking on Next. Just so you know, you can click on View, the View button next to any one of these, and it will show you the protocol setup. And you can see here we have theta selected, and it's going to be 1 to -1. Now if I want to, I could choose an empty table and select frequencies for all 19 channels. I can enable more than one frequency band and set the z-score ranges any way I want to, from 6 to -6. So there's a lot of different versatility with these threshold setups, just so you know. So now this is all set. I'm going to click on Next, and it's going to take us to our next page here. This is where you set up your coherences and your phases. And you'll notice that none of these buttons are clickable yet. And in order to do that, you have to pick a setup. So you'll notice that they're all empty here. I'm going to pick one, and now it sets one up for me and enables all the buttons. I want to name it, so I'm going to name it Annie. And then now I'm going to set up my my pairs. Okay, so we're going to do T3 and T4. You'll notice that I clicked on that and the pair appears here. If I want to get rid of it, I can just highlight it and click Delete Pair, and now it's gone. So now I want to try again. T3, T4, there it is. I want F3 and T6. I want T3 and T5. Okay, so those are the pairs that I want to set up here. Once I'm happy with all those, I click on Next. And it takes us to the next tab now. And you have two columns of setups here. One for ZCO, which is coherence. The next is ZPH for phase. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to choose my Z-score ranges for each one of these pairs. For the T3, T4, I'm going to choose beta 2, 1 and negative 1. For the F3, T6, I'm going to choose beta 1. And those are all for phase lag. Oh, wrong ones. Okay. Okay, that's beta 2 and then beta 1. And then we want T3, T5, and beta. So you're noticing I'm only setting up for phase here. You don't have to set anything up for coherence if you don't want to. In this particular case, this is the protocol that we set up. So I have this all ready to go, and I click on Next. And it takes us to the next page. At this point, what I can do is I can click on, I can change the percentage of for the threshold. Now, you really don't have to change anything here because you're going to set your threshold on the fly once you get going. So really leave the number at 50, click on Save Settings, and return to Treatment Setup. Now it just popped us over. We just set up all the neurofeedback selections for this patient, and now we're in Start Treatment. And if I click on Start Treatment now, what it's going to do is it's going to start the session. And I want to show you something really quick here. Let me just make sure that we're good to go here. Shrink the controls. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the program. And I want to show you how fast you can actually set a person up. Once you've gone through all of this setup, next week person comes in, you start the program, I go to CAN bus 1, I select my patient. I select and continue. Now I'm going to get the patient stim set up. It loads everything, I save and continue. Now I get patient set up and it loads all the EEG settings that we just went through. Save patient and continue. And now it finds the thresholds that we set up last time. If you're happy with them, you just click on Next. If you want to modify them, modify them. You click Next, it takes you to the coherence and pair setup. It grabs her last setup here. Again, we can modify them if we want to. For fine, go to the next part. Set your thresholds for coherence and phase. If that's good, go to Next, save settings and continue. And now we're ready to start. If you notice, I did that inside of 30 seconds. So that's how fast you can do your setups for your repeat once you go through the initial setup. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it up, and I'm going to click Start, and NeuroField is going to go through the process of getting ZooCore ready to go and starting it up. So I'm going to pull the ZooCore launcher over. Let's see, it's appearing on my second screen now. So what I'm going to do here is go to DVD training and load it. Yeah. Okay, and we'll say okay to that. So I'm minimizing ZooCore here. Yeah? Okay. All right, I'm pulling it over here. I want to make it so you can see everything as we run. We like to use ZooCore for a lot of different things. There's a lot of ways to set up ZooCore. This is an exceptional media player. It's robust, it's quick, it works very well. For the effects, we like to use, you'll see here, we like to use vignette, and we like to use zoom controls. For our zoom controls, we set it at 2%, 3%, and 50%, 100 millisecond update. For the vignette, we like to set it to 1, 3, and 35%, 100 millisecond update. This works nicely. It's a good form of feedback that the person can easily see. Now we have all our movies streamed to a server. So when you're getting media, you just click on media, and it will grab everything that was in there. And right now you can see that we have a lot of different things here that are available to us. And You can go through and grab videos from our server, and it makes it really easy to make things play seamlessly. I'm just going to use the one that's here, this dark blue, and start that one up. Simply select it, say OK, and now we want to get, we're going to say ready and get that started. And I'm going to click start. Now the Zucore player is going to start going here. I'm going to kill the volume on it. And once you got Zucore going and the person's ready to go, then you just say, okay, this is playing. Now you're going to click this button that says press OK when Zucore is ready. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to start it. Now NeuroField starts up, and it starts grabbing EEG data. And of course, the Zucore screen would be on the second monitor. Now it's going through the 32 seconds of grabbing data, and you can see everything that you're grabbing here. This is the RMS data, and then here's our Z-score data. The highlighted cells are the ones that are being trained. If it appears in red, then it's too high, blue is too low. If the cell turns green, that's going between the Z-score range that you set. On the right side here, you can see the percentage. And here we go, we're at the end of 32 seconds. She's getting her first stim right now. And you can actually see that running here. And after the first stim is over, we go right back into our next training epoch. So she's training along, and we're going to go over here and set our threshold right here. And we want to set it so that it's adequately challenging, not too easy, but not too hard. So I keep on increasing this until we get it down to a level where it starts to really get small and Zucore is constantly moving. If it's too easy, then you're not training. If it's too hard, you're not training well. So you want to find that sweet spot. When at the end of 32 seconds, NeuroField gives a 100% reward through Zucore and then gives another stim. And then we start the next training round. And as it's training along, then Zucore starts up again, and now we're back into real neurofeedback. And this really is the beauty of NeuroField64. It's capable of being able to do some really pristine neurofeedback, very quick, very, very fast, along with synchronizing the stimulation. When we get to the end of that training round, again, Zucore is going to go to 100% reward, and then the next stim will be given. And there it goes to 100% reward, and there goes the next stim. And again, the stim is going through, it's going through the coils, it's going through the direct current device as well. Now there's a lot of things to see on this window here. Of course, you can see the real-time Z-score values. You can see the real-time amplitude values. In Z-score, what you can also see is the actual values. It plots them as it goes. So you can watch what happens in each frequency band after each stimulation, and it will plot them out for you, which is really neat. You can see how the session's actually going. So I can go over here and say one of the, so let's go to T3 and look at T3 and then look at theta. And you can watch what happens in theta, and again, you're seeing your Z-score ranges here. And see, another one was T5. Let's look at T5. And again, you'll watch your ranges change as it goes along. The other thing that you can see here is your coherence and phase data. Remember, we set some real-time phase in here, so we can look at the real-time phase and look at the frequency pairs as they're training along. And they were in beta 2. Let's see. There's our beta 2. And you can watch what's happening there. So each one of these is going to plot along. All this data gets saved into history. So it's really nice to see it as you're running, essentially. Now you could also look at frequency spectrums for each specific site. And it's really fascinating to see what's happening as a person receives stimulation. We're noting some really interesting responses in people. And there's you can see the peak alpha here appearing, and you see it 01, 02, And there we go again. There's our T3, T4. Boy, a lot of noise there, a lot of stuff here. And then, of course, we look at our central zenus sites. It's really neat to watch the spectrums move as a person continues to train. So, as the treatment goes along, you can modify and change the thresholds in real time. You can change the way the EEG appears. And here you see this, you can shrink this guy up and make him really small, or you can make him larger. He's adjustable on the fly. You can click on, when it's running, you'll notice at the top here it says 25 microvolts. It automatically scales. So you can make the EEG scale in, or zoom out. All you do is simply double click on the screen, and then it will zoom in and keep on zooming in until you hit the last one, and then it'll zoom back out to 50 microvolts. And that's where it was before. It's quite a nice signal. It's really clean. Again, we're really happy with our Q20 simply because of what it's capable of being able to do. Now, if you want to, you can change your settings on the fly. If you want, you see things in the Z-score matrix here that you feel like you want to train, you can certainly target those and say, okay, I want to train something differently. So I saw a -3.3 appear here in PZ at beta 2. So I'm gonna put that in there. You notice right now that it's not highlighted. I click on adjust thresholds. It's going to pull up my threshold adjust window. It automatically defaults to the amplitude threshold adjust, but we want to go to Z-score. So I click on this tab, and I'm going to choose PZ as my channel. And then once PZ comes up here, I'm going to click on Get Thresholds. And you'll notice right now we're training the high beta 1, -1. So let's say I want to add what I saw before, which was that beta 3, I think it was. And so, or beta 2. So what I want to do here is enable beta 2. I'll put 1 to -1. And then I'm going to click on Update. And then all of a sudden you see this cell activate. You can activate, you can change the thresholds on the fly for the amplitude, for the coherence, and the phase. So it really is a nice little on-the-fly change. So if I click on minimize, that makes this window go away. If you want to get it back, just click on adjust threshold setups, and then it brings it back again. All right. Now as we're running along here, we can go back and look at the plots and see how the training's going. Again, you can check everything on the fly as it's going. The program is a multi-threaded 64-bit program, so it's capable of doing multiple tasks at the same time. I'm pretty happy with the way this thing is working right now, especially with the ability to be able to give stimulation and neurofeedback synchronized in such a pristine way. All right. So when you're done with treatment, what we like to do is I want you to pad the treatment by around 30 to 60 seconds. So when you know you're going to be done, typically with this kind of procedure, we want to make sure to not overtrain a person. This can be pretty arduous, and your technician really needs to be watching to make sure that the person doesn't get over-fatigued. We have found that roughly 20 minutes to 25 minutes is a good amount of treatment time. Pushing beyond that seems to really over-fatigue people. Now that doesn't mean you can't do more than one session a day. You can, but you have to give them an adequate rest period. If you do, then they can really train nicely in both sessions. Okay, so when I want to stop the treatment, I can stop it ASAP. If I do that though, what's going to happen is that I'm going to lose the data that we have just obtained, because the ASAP means right now. It's a kill switch. But if I want to stop the training and have NeuroField save the data, then I click on just the stop treatment button. So you notice it started up again. I click stop treatment, and it's going to run through the last training period here. And once it completes, then it's going to save all the data, and you're going to see the treatment complete screen come up. Now it finishes whatever training period it's on, and then it grabs another post-test measurement right at the end. So we don't tell people that the treatment is over until you actually see the program tell you that it's done. So if you're doing 32-second training periods, it'll finish the 32 seconds, then it jumps into the 32-second post-test follow-up, and that's what it's doing right now. So you wait for it to finish. Person's continuing to train here. You see that the ZooCore is still active. It's still responding. And when it gets to the end of the 32 seconds, then it'll shut off and stop. So we wait for it here. And when it gets to the end of 32 seconds, it'll save all the data, and then it will shut off. And now it's done. So ZooCore is still running, as you can see. And so what you do here is just kill ZooCore, and that screen will stop. And once that disappears here, we can click on treatment complete and click to continue. Let's get you set up for HRV. So now we're all done. I can click on history, and I can look to see what happened in that session. I can go to measured amplitude data. I can look at historical Z-score. And it's not going to show us anything now that's really relevant because we only have one session. But what this will do is it will plot session by session scores as you go along, which is really cool. Unlike this plotter here, this plotter is showing you what happened within this session. But this plotter is going to show you what happens in between sessions. So you can actually watch the progression of treatment as you go along, which is really nice. All right. So now what I'm going to do here is I want to take a minute to answer some questions. And there's quite a few. Okay. So I see one of the questions is on my MS tablet and my 4K laptop display is compressed, tiny. Is there a way to make it larger? A 4K laptop is definitely going to make everything very, very tiny. It makes everything tiny, not just NeuroField64, but anything that you run on it. So the way you set your resolution is definitely going to have an impact. But what we found was that if you see any distortions of the text in the program, what's happening is that Windows is using a scaling feature that it automatically turns on. If you're using anything other than the 100% scaling that Windows that should be displayed, then the text can be corrupted. You'll see that in NeuroGuide. You'll see that in NeuroField. You'll see it in other programs. So really the answer is to change your resolution and to make sure that you're not using any of the scaling on the desktop. Let's see. Okay, so ZooCore Media Player or any other ZooCore program flight. So right now, what we have enabled in ZooCore is only the media player. We will eventually move on to the other games in ZooCore and enable them as well. We wanted to get this out the door and make sure that everything was working nicely before we moved on. I can tell you right now that I have enabled Grind, the skateboard game, on my laptop, and it does work. So we're capable of being able to move into that in the near future, which we probably will. So that was to Michael. Another question was, can you simultaneously measure HRV as you do NeuroField, STIM, and Z-score? Good question. Right now it's set up to be either or. You either enable EEG or HRV. So we haven't made it where it actually runs both simultaneously. In the previous program, we had it actually switch in between both of them. If you enabled both of them, it would go between each. But for this one, we haven't even crossed that bridge. So the answer is maybe. So I really don't know yet. But for now, it's no. Is Loretta neurofeedback possible? In this platform right now, we have 19-channel surface Z-score. We do not have Loretta Z-score activated at this time. What I can tell you is that we are working on a solution for Loretta neurofeedback, and hopefully we'll have something to say more about that in the near future, particularly in the NeuroField conference that's coming up in July, which I really suggest you guys come to. It's going to be a great time. We have a lot of good speakers. Marie Jones asks, what is the test primary current stim? Okay, that's a good question. So you see these buttons here, test primary mag stim, test secondary mag stim, primary stem, secondary stem. What this does is if you click on this button and you look at the unit should start flashing. So you should see it turn on for the mag stems. So if you test the mag stems, you'll see them blink for just a couple seconds and then they'll turn off. This is the way so that you know which one is which one. Which one's the primary, which one's the secondary. The same goes for the current stem, but that actually gets displayed through these windows here. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so saw Drew said, I already changed the scaling and multiple display settings, but the display is still distorted and the text is cut off. Now what that means is depending on the version of Windows that you're running, what you see here, I'm going to go into screen resolution, and you can see here that you only have certain settings. So now you see here, this is Windows 7. We have it on 10, 8, it will work. You'll also see advanced settings, and in here you can get into some different stuff. I'm going to try to find the text. Okay, here you'll see that the text setting is set to 100%. Now you might need to go in and actually set the custom text size. Now in some programs they actually change this this font to a different size. If you scale it to 100%, then it's going to display correctly. But this is kind of hidden depending on where you're going to look for. In Windows 7, this is where it's located. In Windows 10, it's a little bit different. But you want to look for text settings and you want to look for custom sizes, and then change it back to 100%, and it should solve your problem. All right. So I'm being asked, will you be considering Phil Jones's program in the future? Absolutely. Phil's work in the field is amazing, and we're certainly looking at his work. And then Windows 10 64-bit. Yeah, Drew, we need to look at that specifically. I can't demonstrate it on this machine simply because it's not able to be demonstrated on this machine. All right, so back to it. I'm going to unmute everybody real quick and see if there's any other questions. So you're all active. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? All the mics are active right now, so does anybody have a question?
Hi, Nick. Just want to say thanks for the presentation. And will we get a recording of this?
Yeah, it's being recorded. It will be put up on the website.
All right, great. And this is really very promising, amazing software programs that you've got going. I'm looking forward to seeing the day when it does get integrated with Bill Jones's program.
Yeah, that's around the corner. That's around the corner.
All right,
And we're,
thanks.
we're working on that. You're welcome. Um,
All right, take care.
mhm. Okay, so can you send me or tell me where to find the media clips that you're using in Zucore? Um, we can talk about that afterwards. Whoever, I can't see who's asking for that. It's Erica. Yeah, we can get that to you. No problem. We like to use solfeggio stuff, but it depends on the feedback. That feedback that you saw there is really great because it doesn't really have any content to it. It's all tones, and the video serves to keep a person focused. All right. All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to jump into the HRV piece here because, of course, NeuroField has HRV. So now what you're going to see is the other side of the program. So I'm gonna kill this real quick, come back into the program, and we have our HRV unit, and it's all set up. And we say start, get into it here, and I'm going to grab my patient, and I'm going to select and continue. Now what I want to do is I would set up my coils and everything that I wanted to use, yada, 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 just like before. We set up all the locations. In the HRV, we typically work on the body, so we're going to select body. And same thing for the TDCS units, which you can work on the body with. Okay. Now once I have that all set up, I'm going to select my protocol. In this particular protocol, what I want to do is I want to use the Nozier database, and I'm going to click on here. You can see all these beautiful protocols that were set up by Annie, and so now I'm just going to grab the low frequencies all. That's the first step in the procedure. We click on load, and now they're all loaded in. Save and continue. Now it's all set up and ready to go, and we save and continue. And now what you see here is we're going to select our training mode, which is now HRV. What we did differently in NeuroField64 is we have the same exact procedure in this program as we did in NeuroField 10. But what we added in this platform is the ability to, instead of looking at changes in the SDNN, you can also look for changes in the actual amplitude or the strength of the pulse, which is what Paul Nozier did when he measured radial pulses. He did it with his fingers, and they did it, manually. But we can do it with the computer and measure amplitude changes. Now, in the previous program, we used the standard deviation from normal to normal beat, and that's the way it defaults. Now, the baselines are set up at 10 milliseconds and then 10 microvolts for the amplitude. The HRV setup now is pretty straightforward. You're going to see the threshold setup and then these values. And in order to, you need to make sure that you're getting a signal. So you click on Start HRV Scans, and it automatically turns on, and it's going to start looking for a heartbeat. And hopefully there's one here. Let's see what it looks like. There it is. Big old heartbeat. Okay, so now once it sees it and you confirm that you're actually getting a good signal, this is a nice clean signal here, then what we want to do is click on Stop HRV Scans. So we click on Stop, and it stops the scanning. Next thing you want to do after that is press on Calibrate HRV Sensor. So we click on that, and it automatically runs through the calibration routine. and it's going to look for the heartbeat, and it's going to set the threshold for it. Now you see the yellow line here is the actual threshold, and when it finishes, it says HRV calibration complete. You click OK, and it's ready to go. Now you can see here that a little rectangle appears after each heartbeat is detected. We call this rectangle the hold off. And that is telling the computer to hold off looking for another beat until X amount of time has gone by. And this is our way of preventing artifact from sneaking into this little measurement. So we get a heartbeat, we put a hold off up, and then this blank or empty piece of screen here in between each of the rectangles is a time in which the computer can actually catch another heartbeat. So once it catches the next one, it puts up another hold off. Now these should be pretty close to being evenly separated. As long as they correspond to the actual edge of the heartbeat, it's picking it up the right way. We call this the picket fence. If you see it like this, it's calibrated correctly. Now the other thing that you can do here is you can also set up an HRV pacer. If you click over here and click on Start Pacer, it'll automatically set up a breathing pacer for you. You can just simply click into this box and enter in the amount of breaths per minute that you want the person to achieve. And then the pacer will automatically change and they can start breathing with that. You can move it over to their screen. I'm just going to move it down here for now. Now once this is all set up and ready to go, you can do some different things here. You can set up the pre-stim, inter-stim, and post-stim time for HRV selection. If you click on these, you'll see the amount of time in seconds. And the amount of time really does matter in terms of the resolution of the plots that you generate while the program runs. The total power spectrum is going to be influenced by the amount of time. So if you only get a very small amount of measurement, then the spectrum's going to look like this. It's going to be chunky. This is a 0 to 3 hertz spread here. If we had a 64-second scan, you'll see a much higher resolution plot here. And it really does show you a good deal about what's happening in the frequency ranges from the sympathetic range to the parasympathetic range all the way into the delta range, which really tells you a lot during HRV. Now, for the purposes of this little seminar here, we're not going to go into that. I'll do another webinar in the future about this. But for the sake of the procedure, we're going to leave it at 4 seconds. Now everything's set up and ready to go. We save the patient setup and then we start it. Now NeuroField's automatically going to set up and it should start running, and then it's going to take a baseline. Once the baseline's set, then it gives the first stim, and then after that it's going to start plotting everything for you. And the baseline's set up at 25.35 milliseconds. So in this procedure, in order to see a hit occurred, we need to see the SDNN increase above 10 milliseconds above the baseline. So in this case, it would be 35.35, which would register a hit in NeuroField. Now on the actual plots here, on the top, this is the amplitude plot. On the bottom, this is the SDNN plot. So you can actually see what happens with each one of the metrics as a person receives stimulation. And the idea here is to screen the person for the first 7 frequencies in the Nogier set of frequencies. We want to do, this is a gross screening. We want to determine which one of the 7 the body is going to accept or give a yes response to. After that, what we're going to do is select that one that the body says yes to and do a finer resolution screening. The whole procedure takes about 15 minutes to run. And once it's all done, then you can actually give those frequencies to the person for anywhere from 20 to 30 to 45 minutes, depending on what you think is accurate. Typically, 20 to 45 minutes is about the amount of time that we feel has a good treatment effect on a person. So it's going through. You can see the metrics are being displayed below. And then you can see it'll generate spectrums and power spectrums if you take enough data. If you're taking only 4 seconds of data, it's not going to give you these spectrums because it's really not relevant data. You need at least a minute to make it relevant. Okay, so this is the heart rate spectrum. Okay, and we're getting to the last stimulation here. It's going to measure a post-test. And once it does that, it pops open this window. Now it's telling you which ones were the hits. And you can see that there's 4 of them that actually were selected. And you want to look at the plot to determine which one you're actually going to pick. And if you can see that the last one actually scored the highest SDNN, which is the 4th one here, that it's 146 hertz. And so that's the one that we're going to want to use. So once, I could say, well, I just want to give 146 hertz, and if I click on use HRV hits at this point, it's going to create a protocol with just one frequency in it, 146. But I want to see if the body wants more. So what I'm going to do is click on cancel here. It pops open the protocol selection screen. So I want to go back to Nogier database. I'm going to pop open the cerebral cortex, which is the last one here. It's number 7. Load it. And then it's going to load all those frequencies for me. Save and continue. And then it's all set up and ready to go. Save and continue. HRV is all ready to go. Don't need to do anything there. And we just save and continue and start it. Now it automatically starts to gather the baseline again, and it's going to go through the process of stimming her. But this time what it's going to do is it's doing a plus or minus 10% of the frequency that her body chose. So she was at 146 hertz. You notice now we're giving stims below 146. So we're trying to find, this is a really fine-tuned a measurement. You see we're at 145.2. We're looking for the frequencies that the body is actually going to accept. This procedure is a muscle testing procedure. We're muscle testing the heart. We're seeing where variability occurs, and when we see the changes in variability, we say that those are yes responses from the body. And we take those yes responses and we put them in a table. And that table is going to be what we use to actually treat the person. So here we see the SDNN baseline was 56.1. In order to get a hit, it has to come in above 56.1 or 66.1. When you get one, it lights up here. You see SDNN hit, and when you don't get one, it won't light up. Now it's going to jump through basically 21 different frequencies. And you can do this procedure with coils. You can do it with the ACS. There's a lot of different ways to administer it. And we typically do it with the coils. Although you can use the ACS to treat pain. So let's say you have a bad knee. What you can do is put the anode and cathode, one above the knee and one below the knee, or on the inside of the knee or the outside of the knee or side to side, and then put the coils over it. And then you can run the Nogier procedure here and muscle test the body and see which one frequency the body's going to want. Annie did this with Sophie, and you gave her tissues. Was it the tissues protocol? And so she gave tissues and treated her that way. Then what'd you do after that? And then she gave the analgesic protocol in the Nogier database. That had a really profound effect on Sophie. Actually, she had some nerve damage where she had numbness, and apparently it resolved it, where she was able to feel her leg again, which is kind of cool. In one 15-minute session, I'm being told. I was here. I saw it. It was beautiful. All right. So it's moving along here. When it gets to the end of each one of the stimulations, you're done with the assessment portion. It's a two-stage assessment process. On the third stage, you can take the HRV sensor off the person and you can administer the whatever frequencies were designated as hits and go from there. And so we're on 20. How many does the cortex have? Best guess. 28. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so it just finished. And it registered two hits, 145.2 and 145.5. Now, if I want to, I can say, okay, well, those were the hits, and that's what I want to give. It automatically creates the protocol for you. You click on Use HRV Hits. It takes you back to the stimulation setup window. You'll notice that the Nogier database is selected, and the protocol that's selected are HRV hits. So now what you want to do is you notice your estimated runtime is 5 seconds. Let's say I want to change that, and I make it 100 loops. Now we're at 8 minutes. Let's make it 1,000 loops. 83 minutes, too much. 500 loops. So that's 41 minutes. I could set a abort time to 45 minutes so it doesn't go longer than that. Once it's set, I save and continue. You'll notice now we get back to the neurofeedback selection. We don't need HRV anymore. We shut it off for you. So now you just click on Save Settings and then start your treatment. And now NeuroField's going to start up and it will begin giving those two frequencies again and again and again until the protocol is complete. Okay. So for now, as we close up here, I want to see if there's other questions. Okay, and I see Michael's asking, is it possible to add a mouse clicker to make a time event marker on the EEG? We certainly can look at that. Let me talk to Brad about that and we'll see what we can do. Here's another question. Can you have it up on a website by this weekend so I can go over it with another NeuroField practitioner to see what's happening? So, okay, so you're asking if the video is going to be up by this weekend. We will do our best. We will see if that's possible. And you guys are welcome. We are awesome. Okay, what else? Okay, I'm going to open up all the mics here. And all the mics are open now. All the mics are open. We're listening to what you're saying. So you folks have any questions here?
Oh, yeah. I want to have a conversation.
Any questions? All mics are open. We can hear everything you're doing in the background now, just so you know. Okay, so I don't think anybody's going to ask any more questions at this point.
Nick?
Yes?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, you didn't unmute us, so I did unmute my,
I just unmuted
myself up.
I was making everybody possible. Yeah.
I want to thank you for your presentation and thank you for going over everything so carefully and also starting it by saying there's a manual. So I'm thinking for myself, I can watch this website presentation again because you're recording it.
Yes.
With my manual open, you know, have that maybe printed out and open for me too so I can really see every step of the way and understand all the different nuances.
Right, yeah. The manual is located under C drive in the NeuroField64 folder, and it's right there. And so that's where it's a PDF manual. You can double click on that guy, and it's right there for you.
Now, when you say it's right there, you mean after we're able to download the 64 or what?
When NeuroField64 installs itself, it automatically places the manual in that folder.
Okay, so we're automatically going to see it installed in our computers?
That's correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's all ready for you. Cindy Reynolds went through a great deal of work to put that together. It's really well written. It's a PDF, so you just double click on it, it'll open up, and then you can, every piece of what, you know, is being discussed here is in this manual.
Nick, it's Barry J.
Hey, Barry.
You were talking about the session by session history. Is there a way to print that out?
Yes, there is. So once you get that, okay, let me go over here. We should be able to plot the data, and let me get in here real quick. So if I go to my patient, I select my patient, I go to history, and then this is everything that we did during these 2 hours here. And let's say I want to go back to that neurofeedback session, right? And I can go back over here and then go to measured amplitude data and then historical data, and I should be able to plot it and then print it. Yep. And so it's right there. And so it'll print that plot for you.
Beautiful.
And then you can do what you want with it from there. So if you want to, you can set up your printer to either print a hard copy, or you can, we're going to see what we can do about doing more with this, like screenshotting and maybe printing to a PDF, stuff like that. So you can
Cool.
probably do that now. Yeah, cool, huh? And it makes it, the idea obviously is to be able to, you want to watch what's happening from session to session. And this plot right now is not showing you much. I mean, it's going to show you what's going to happen after each particular session. So now you just see session number 1 here, and then there's no other data. But as you go along, you get 20 sessions in here, you can actually see the progression of how a person's responding.
Yeah.
Okay?
Nice.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I see Mike Canorier. Awesome product. Congratulations. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Are there any other questions? There should be. Okay, here's another one for you. I'm going to take you guys through something real quick. And I didn't touch on this while I had electrodes on Annie, but I should have, darn it. All right, here we go. For people that bailed out early, they're going to miss this one. You can do amplitude training in NeuroField. So let's say I get somebody that we're doing, we want to get some theta down, right? And we want to give them SMR. So I'm going to choose 12 to 15 HD, load a protocol. Save it and get it going. Let's enable all of my units. Okay. Now those are set up. And let's say I set it to 3 loops. And I save and continue. I'm going to open up EEG. I'm going to use Zucor feedback, but now I'm going to use amplitude training for good old school theta down training. I'm not going to enable any of these procedures here, although you can use RTZ, which it's for amplitude we call it RTH, or real-time hit. If the amplitudes are maintained, then you get a reward essentially. Now in this case, what we're going to do is we're not going to check any of this. Just make it amplitude training, 32-second epochs, and we're going to save and start it. Now we're going to have it load thresholds for us. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn everything off. Now here's how I do it. Now you notice I have a bunch of stuff enabled here. To turn it off, I want to just select off and then update channels 1 to 19. Click return setups, and it turns off all the thresholds. I save and continue. Now you notice it skipped right over coherence because you're not going to do coherence with power training. We're just doing power training. Select and continue. And then we start it. Computer's automatically going to turn on Zucor, which I'm not going to play with right now. We're just going to start it. And it's automatically going to start grabbing data. Now we don't have anybody hooked up, so you're just going to see noise. Let's close this little window here. And you see the noise going along. And it does the same thing as RTZ, but now with power. So here's the cool part. I didn't set any thresholds. So if you want to, I'm going to click on Adjust Thresholds Settings. and it opens up my threshold setup. Now let's say I wanted to do 19 channels of power training and just do them all down, theta down. So what I do is I want to get my threshold for FP1. There's nothing there. So you see theta here. You see all the frequency ranges from delta all the way up to gamma. You'll notice there's an up and a down button on each one of the frequency ranges. So that's for up training or down training. Now to enable a frequency range, just click on the box that says enable and you'll see it turn on. Now from here, what I want to do is click on update FP1. I'm going to update it. And now FP1 is enabled. Now if I want to, what I want to do now is I want to get the current level for theta. And if you notice in the actual downtrain, that level is being displayed here. You can see it. And if I click on auto adjust for FP1, it'll automatically set that level for me, which is really cool. So if I want to now, what I can do is say, I want to do this on all 19 channels. I only have FP1 set up. So if I want to, I click on copy to all. And now it just did the same thing for all 19 channels. We're down training 19 channels of theta. Now what I can do is say, okay, let's auto adjust all of them. So now what I just did was I just set the levels based on what we're getting in the actual data, and it auto adjusts all of them. This is a fixed auto adjust. And if you notice on the bottom here, you'll see the RMS value and then the offset for that value. All right, so if I click on auto adjust for all, it should enable them for all. And you'll notice the auto adjust, what it does, the offset is subtracted from the RMS value, whatever it is. And that would be down training. For the RMS value for up training, it's added. Now we do have the ability to do what we call a timed auto adjust. If you go to amplitude threshold, you'll see this is set up here. And what we want to do now is we want it to change and auto adjust. You can say how many seconds to do it in. Let's say I do it every 3 seconds. Then I click on auto adjust FP1, and what it's going to do is it's going to change that value every 3 seconds and auto adjust. Now I can stop the auto adjust, and what I can say is now I want you to do it for all 19 channels. So I can say auto adjust all, and then as everything changes every 3 seconds, it's going to auto adjust. It's denoted in blue here because we're down training. I can go to up training and say I want to up train alpha, enable FP1. Well, I have to shut off the auto adjust to do this. You stop it, go back in over here. I'm going to say FP1, and we're going to enable this and up train it. And we're going to update FP1. Now we have alpha in here. Going to copy them to all. Now we have them all in there. And then we're going to update it again. Auto. And then it auto sets. Go to our timed. And now you can see that we're actually updating. And we say go for it. And now we're updating all 19 channels and doing alpha up training while doing theta down training. So it does the same kind of thing as the previous program, but there's no z-scores. This is pure amplitude training. This has a lot of utility, and you can apply it in a lot of different ways. If you want to make this window go away, click on minimize, and then it's going to be gone. To bring it back, click on adjust threshold settings, and it comes back again. Alrighty. So I'm going to kill this. Kind of cool. I know. All right. Candia says, what a dream. I know. What a cool thing. The amplitude training is pretty good. Okay. What's another question? Michael Pacifico asks some really good ones. What is the airspeed of an unladen swallow? Okay, Gunner, you got the breakout box. That's a good question, Gunnar. Gunnar's asking, he has a breakout box from a person by the name of Daniel Dumaine, and he really built a really beautiful 19-channel breakout box. Right now, the 4-channel breakout is set up. We'd have to look at that. I didn't even think about doing a 19-channel breakout, but we probably could extend to it for whatever it's worth. Yes, Marie asked, can you do current stim with amplitude training? Yes, that's exactly what I was showing you. It's where you're doing direct stimulation and amplitude training, just like you do with Z-score. All right, folks. I hope this was helpful, and we will be saving this information and putting up the video. I'm going to be doing another webinar in the near future here where we're going to be talking about the theory associated with RNS, ACS, DC, and EMF and neurofeedback. And, you know, what does RNS do? What does DC do? What does AC do? How does EMF tie into all this? And what's the clinical utility? How does it affect the brain? What are you seeing in the research? So I've been putting together more and more research, and there's really a lot of good stuff out there right now. So stay tuned on the listserv and look for announcements on that. We will be talking about it. Okay, you guys, have a great day. Thank you for coming.